Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Dan Cartalicchio again, welcoming you to another version of Destination Health Podcast, Finding Function in a Dysfunctional World. I'm really excited about today's discussion. I have a friend of mine on. She has a magazine, and this is going to be a great discussion. I'm looking forward to this. Cara, how are you today? And
hello,
welcome to the podcast.
How are you doing?
I am doing well today. Are you going to interview me?
I mean, I could.
maybe
we'll
do that
as we talk. You know, you never know.
It could go. So how are you today? What's going on?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here. I'm very grateful. This is my first podcast ever that I've ever spoken on.
Ever.
So could it get any better than this? I don't know.
Listen, we are honored and privileged to have you on with your first podcast. And this is going to be exciting. So let me give you a little bit of background about Cara. Cara is the creator of Cara Mia magazine. I'm going to be a contributing editor. Okay, I'm going to write this weekend. Cara believes we're all here to explore contrast and to learn to master our power of intentional and unintentional manifestation. I love that. She's applied her learned spiritual lessons to her life, strengthened by her connection to source energy. Cara is the magazine, talks about health and wellness, personal growth. She likes to share her knowledge and experiences with others. This is going to be a great conversation. You practice healthy habits, nutrition, exercise, reprogramming your subconscious mind. That's my first question. What do you mean by reprogramming your subconscious mind?
So my thoughts on that are, you know, we all grow up and we sort of assign these meanings to events that happens to us. Now, these can be traumatic experiences, pretty much anything. And when I think back to childhood, my environment, it wasn't always, there was dysfunction, let's be real. And
we all have dysfunction growing up, right?
Yeah, and I think that when we experience certain events, we assign it a meaning of, okay, well, this thing means this. So I can either never do it again, or it means this about me as a person. And then we go on with our lives according to this belief that we've now taken in from this event. So our subconscious mind is responsible for, I think it's 90% of what we've manifested in our lives. So in our subconscious, we need to, and we can, if we explore those limiting beliefs, what we've taken in, we can find the root of, hey, you know, this thing happened to me when I was 7 years old. And ever since then, I've been repeating this pattern. And if you heal that initial moment of trauma, or that initial moment of when you assign this event, this meaning about whatever it was, all you have to do, it just changes your perception. And when you change your perception about that thing, now we can take a different action than what we've been taking in a more positive way, and then it has more positive results. And I think it's just so important to really get to know yourself and become self-aware, because awareness is the key to healing, right? So when we become aware of, hey, you know what, like for me, I was labeled as I have ADD, right? Okay, that's why I just wasn't good in school, or I couldn't pay attention, or, well, you know, you don't get all the details when you learn. You have to bring a tape recorder. You have to do this. You have to do that. Not realizing until I was older that, first of all, I'm an artist. Okay, and artists actually learn differently. You know, we're not all meant for this cookie cutter program that school is cut out to be. So I learn differently, yes. Now, when you label a child with ADD, ADHD, whatever it is, at least for me, I took that in as, I'm different than other children, so I'm not good enough. I can't do school, so I'm not good enough. It was all these I'm not good enough beliefs that I was taking in. And I think it's super important with these labels
Mhm.
that just get used so frequently. Like,
Right.
it doesn't mean something negative.
Mhm.
Like for me, yes, okay, I'm an artist. Well, that means I like to create.
Mhm.
I also know now as I'm older that I don't learn by reading. I actually learn by hearing, like an audiobook, and I
Mhm.
also learn by hands-on work, like physically
Kinesthetic. Yeah.
doing things.
Right.
Yes, and I have to repeat it over and over, and I'll learn little tidbits every time I do it.
Right.
And then once I do it enough, boom, it's in my head, and I can do it with my eyes closed and usually do it better than anybody.
Right. Sure.
Um, I learned that I'm an INFJ. I took the Myers-Briggs personality test, and when you look at my personality type, first of all, it makes up 1% of the population.
Mhm.
So that can be a little rough sometimes finding people that I really vibe with. But part of being an INFJ is it's intuitive, it's wanting that deeper connection, it's being creative, it's I do like what's the word? Structure,
Mhm.
but I like to be creative also.
Right.
So when I took this test and I looked at the personality type, I said, oh my God, okay, like this is making sense. And this was along, which is still my spiritual journey, but this was one of the things I was taking in as I was observing myself, getting to know myself, observing all these thoughts that I'm having from a neutral place. And something as simple as why I react to the way I do to some things, it makes so much sense now.
Mhm.
And I can either heal it or I can at least communicate it. And I always, whenever I speak of this, I think about back when I was married. I am currently divorced. I've been divorced for 2 years. And I remember now I don't party, I don't go out and drink. I was never that type of person.
What? You didn't go clubbing? You grew up in northern New Jersey. You didn't go
Uh,
clubbing?
I was always that old soul. I
Mhm.
really was. I was the designated driver. I was driving my drunk friends around. I only had so much sort of tolerance for that type of environment. And I always felt like something was wrong with me. I
Mhm.
always felt that way. But as I got older and I learned so many things, for me, I now know that when it's too much like stimulation,
Mhm.
I actually get agitated because of my energy management.
Mhm.
Now know I have a certain amount of energy to put towards social situations,
Mhm.
and that's all fine and good. But when my energy starts to feel drained, now I know, okay, it's time to go home. I have to recharge my batteries, and I have to do that in
Mhm.
a quiet, comfortable place, which is my home. I need that time to recharge, else I get irritable
Right.
and I get angry. So as I got older, you go to weddings here and there, your friends start getting married. And we went to weddings, as a married couple, my ex-husband and I. And just toward the end of the night, it's like the music gets louder, everybody gets drunker, and I'm not.
Right. Yeah.
People are
I understand.
screaming in my ears. I can't hear anything. And it's like you're nodding like you can hear them, but in reality, you're like, I don't know what you're even saying. And it's like I can only take so much of that before I'm like, okay, I'm done.
Right.
And I would just get irritable, or like, I guess maybe the word is cranky. And it's like I just remember my husband and I like getting in the car and leaving, and he was just like, what is wrong with you? Like, why are you so like angry or whatever it is? And at the time, I didn't have an answer, and I actually felt like, yeah, like what is wrong with me? And it
Mhm.
made me more resentful that I was
Right.
being way, because I'm going, yeah, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And I'm like, but as I got older and I studied, energy management, and I observed myself and I learned all these things, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with me. I have a personality type that makes up 1% of the population. So now I think back to that time and I'm like, wow, had I known this about
Mhm.
myself, I could have said, hey, just so you know, this is the way I am. This is what happens. Maybe we could take 2 cars. Or hey, like, can we decide on a time to leave maybe beforehand? And then
Right.
at the time there was no Uber. Okay, there was none of this going
So
on.
yeah, so you couldn't just jump in, call up and say, hey, listen, I'm
Right.
Cara. I need to get out of here and I need
Right.
to get out of here now.
We couldn't turn to each other at a wedding and be like, well, I'm having a good time. Well, I want to go home. Well, call an Uber, see you later. It's like it wasn't like that, back
Right,
then.
sure.
Yeah, so I just think, it just really helps to just avoid so many issues. The more
Mhm.
self-aware you are, the more you can communicate these things. And the more you can make sure you're compatible with someone else. And that goes with friends also. That also goes with your career.
Mhm.
That's a big one for me. I had
Sure.
desk jobs for how many years? I was in the car business.
Mhm.
I never belonged in the car business.
Right.
No, never belonged there.
It wasn't your thing.
Oh, energy wise, first of all, the hours, it's like where you have these days where you're working. Well, it's 8 to 8 today, and then it's 8 to 6 the next. And
Right,
it's like
right.
you're working Saturdays and this and that. And it's like I'm sitting behind a desk trying to sell a car to somebody that I could really care less about because again, back then I didn't know myself. I didn't have a passion. I
Right.
didn't have something I believed in. So
Right.
this
You didn't know what was going on in your life at that point.
and it was draining my energy more and more and
Mhm.
more. And it's like the belief system that I came from growing
Mhm.
up, this is really important, was you get a job to pay your bills. Stress and money comes first, then anxiety, then anger. If
Right.
you're an artist, that's great, but that doesn't pay the bills.
It doesn't pay the bills. Correct.
So what kind of messaging was that sending to me? And what were
Right.
these beliefs that I was assigning to these situations? It was like, well, okay, it'd be great to be the next Britney Spears, but the odds of that are pretty much 0 to none. So here I am. And well, life just sucks. And this is what I have to do. I have to work 40 hours a week to get free health insurance.
Right.
And that really was the extent of my thinking.
That's what you were brought up with.
That's what I was brought up with. I was brought up in a household really with a lot of, like I said, there was so much anxiety and there was so much anger and resentment and dysfunction. And when you're raised in an environment like that, and then later down the line, you're introduced to these other ways of thinking, or these other people are showing you,
Right.
you know,
Sure.
hey, you can reprogram these thoughts.
Mhm.
Hey, you know what? You're actually responsible for your own shit.
Sure.
There's a
100%.
You're not a victim. You can change your situation.
Mhm.
That was huge for me.
Yes. You know what? I must say, number one, thank you for your personal share. That was awesome. Number two, this may be your first podcast, but you're a natural at at this. So
Because I think it's because I come from such a vulnerable place where I speak my truth, because I know, first of all, speaking your truth is the best way to heal. You have
that's
to
right.
acknowledge it before you can fix it. But there are other people going through the same thing, or just in a different way.
Mhm.
This all boils down to these limiting thoughts, and there's just so many people that are just carrying around these meanings of, it means I'm not good enough, I'm not
Right.
worthy. And I think that's a very common belief
Very
that we,
common.
that's just not so. Everything in life, I really have come to believe, is a matter of perception. If you
Mhm.
can change your perception around something, you can get around it. There's like
Quicker.
you can get through the obstacle no matter what it is. It's what our perception is of that thing and what
Right.
we choose to believe about it.
Absolutely. You know what? Thank you for being vulnerable. I'm going to ask you to be a little bit more vulnerable because I got a bunch of questions that are always running around in my mind. My son has been diagnosed with ADHD, and he's doing well today. We're, there's different ways of helping out without medication and so forth, which I like. I like that route. What was something that you grew up with that you weren't good enough and you weren't worthy, And how did that play out as you got older? And what did you do to help yourself out? So that's a 3-part question.
Well, it's a 3-part question, but as I learned of, again, getting older and in therapy, now I've been in therapy, I mean, talk therapy, literally since I was 16 years old. I mean, this has been just the drill for me. So I was never one of those people that were like, therapy, that's for crazy people, or no, like, you don't do that. For me, I'm used to a third party listening to me, listening to my stuff and trying to learn from it and getting feedback. So as I learned, as I got older, you know, my mom was pretty critical. She was critical of, you know, me, other people. And then my parents
In
got
what way was she critical of you? What would she
like
say?
she would say, it was like, oh, let's say I was whatever, 7 years old. And I was like, oh, Cara, you know, clean your room. Every kid has a messy room, right? You got to tell you know, clean your room. Okay, fine. So there were times where I'd clean my room and I would put 1,000% in, you know, and it's like, okay, as a kid, you hate doing it, but then you're like, wait a minute, I put all of my energy into this. I can't wait to show my mom or my dad, you know.
I can't wait for mom or dad to come in. I want them to be proud of me.
Yes, because they've asked you to do this thing that you don't even like doing, and you somehow found a way to do this and do it. It exceeded their expectations. So now you're like, I have this wonderful thing that I'm going to show this parent that they were trying to get me to do. And you're like, okay, I cleaned my room. And she would say something like, Cara, you know, when you choose to do something, you can do it better than me. Or it was like, there were these compliments, but it was like,
there was always that underlying tone.
Oh, yeah, I think that's,
there was always that underlying tone of disapproval, destructiveness. It's not constructive criticism, it's destructive criticism. There's always that underlying tone of, oh, you know, I'm not happy with what you've done.
It would be half compliment, but half, you always do this. Right. So it's like, what? You know, you're taking this in as a child. And
it's a huge issue today, Cara. I find in my practice that somebody will come in and maybe they're diabetic, or they have, you know, their lipids are all over the place, and the cardiologist is a little concerned, so they get referred to me.
Right.
And you can lose weight, and you can lose the weight, and you can you know, your sugar is normal, HbA1c is normal, but they've been programmed since a very young age that they're not even satisfied that I lost 20 pounds. And for the first time ever in the history of as far back as I can remember, my fasting plasma glucose is normal, or my HbA1c is normal, or my triglycerides are normal, or I lost a bunch of body fat, if you will. And, you know, I'm all excited on the other side of the desk. I'm like, yeah. And they're like this, they're like, but that's all. I'm like, are you kidding me? Here, high five, let's go. You know, we're on our way. But individuals, when they grow up in this type of environment, nothing seems to be good enough for them. Nothing seems to be good enough. And it becomes a situation where you feel the anxiety, the depression, you feel down. Nothing is good enough for yourself. So that becomes a major issue, I think, when you go on in life, and that just permeates. Oh, I got a $50,000 raise. And you're like, oh, that's great.
Yes. And to piggyback off of that, as a matter of fact, part of being an INFJ, part of my personality type is that perfectionist mindset. But also, I've been listening to, her name is Mel Robbins.
Sure.
Oh, she's amazing with this high five habit. I haven't even ordered the book. I mean, I'm just going off of what she says on YouTube and her little snippets that I see about high-fiving yourself and really, really taking that second just for your smallest accomplishments to
Mhm.
really, really high-five yourself and just feel that. Be in that moment
Mhm.
and really pat yourself on the back, because I think when we become adults, even before then, we become so desensitized
That's a great
to
word.
doing that.
That is a great word. You become desensitized.
Oh, yes, we do. So now that has become a part of my, it's another awareness
Mhm.
that I've taken in. She'll say, you got out of bed this morning? Did you make it to work? High five.
Mhm.
Did you, whatever. And I'm like, whoa, like, you know what? Like, you're right. Like, that's how you build your self-esteem. Like, you have to start with the smaller things. And once you
Mhm.
get that down, you're like, okay, like, it's like, wow, you know what? Like, I went to work today, even though I was tired and I
Mhm.
have this sinus migraine. I did the best that I could do. You know what, girl? Good job. That
Right.
was me yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah, you were saying that you weren't feeling so well and your sinuses kind
Oh,
of
I
kind
had
of
a
knocked you
sinus
out.
migraine. Yes.
You know what? I have friends of mine that are in the personal development field, and and this reminds me of some of the conversations that they have with me. And it's a situation where if you get up in the day and you make your bed and you brush your teeth, you start your morning routine, whatever that looks like. Maybe you meditate, maybe you journal, maybe you go for a run, maybe you like to go to the gym. Everybody's different when it comes to that, right? And they say, what happens is you feel good about yourself because you have momentum now and
Exactly.
your day is moving forward so you can get up. And by the time you get out of the house or whatever that looks like for each individual, they've had a series of successes already for that day. Some people may say nonsense, but I say it's true,
It's
because
true.
if you can get up and if you can start doing your whatever, even if your routine is to get up, you brush your teeth, you get some coffee, maybe you have a little breakfast, you read the newspaper, you take your dog, you go for a walk, you come back, and maybe you're going to go to the gym, or you go in the treadmill in the basement or wherever, whatever that is.
Right.
You make your bed, and you're ready to go to work. You have momentum and you build upon that momentum every single day when you're going through your life.
Yeah.
And if you can build momentum, and this is what I find interesting, if you can build momentum doing this, right? If you can build that momentum doing this, what happens is that you start to accomplish what you want to accomplish in your life. Like you say, what is your energy? What is your passion? Where are you supposed to lie in life? You kind of
Right.
start figuring that stuff out, where you want to be, and you start working towards that. Now you have successes. Now I want another success. I want to be that best version of myself today,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So that I can find out who I am and what I can do. So, all right, I'll shut up now because I'm interviewing you.
Well, I was actually going to say, as you were speaking about momentum spiritually, that brings me to, well, yes, what you're actually speaking about is manifestation. Now, when we talk about manifestation, that's what it is. What we focus on expands, right?
Hmm.
So the bigger the momentum, the more it's going to expand and the more we
Hmm.
experience that thing.
That's
So the
right.
more we set the tone for the day and keep doing that thing, it just expands and now we're manifesting
Hmm.
that good day, that good energy. That's the
Right.
energy that we're in. So I agree 100%.
Yeah, you know what? And I do this on just about every day. I have a morning routine where I get up. I'll do some of this. I'll do some of this. I'm a very physical person, so I like working out. So most days I'm doing some type of cardiovascular. I'm doing some type of weight training that sets the tone for my day, and that's where I live. That's my energy, and then from there I go throughout my day. Now I've built up those successes with that momentum, and
Right.
my son is actually learning this because he likes to get up. He likes to, maybe do a little workout. He has his little morning routine, but he is 14. He does get up 10 minutes before we're supposed to leave at times. Let's go, buddy. Let's get up. Let's go. We got to go to school. Do I have to go to school today? Of course you got to go to school today. What does that mean? You're not going to school. So this is important. And for the listeners out there, if you can get a morning routine, or if you can get something, you can find out that, what is your personalized energy, and you can start working off of that. Because once you find out what that is, it's a lot more fun to go through your day instead of, I'm going this way. I don't like it so much, but you know what? This way is really good, and I'm having a good time. I can go through my day. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that it really is. It's your own personal roadmap through life. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. So doing this work, now some would call it shadow work. Mm-hmm. Okay. Some call it self-awareness. Some call it healing, like whatever it is. It's all the same thing. It's getting to know yourself, getting to observe your thoughts from a neutral place, and deciding how that affects you and what works best for you. So like I said, like before I had these desk jobs, customer service jobs, where I didn't realize it was draining all of my energy. Mm-hmm. Once I learned these things, I said, okay, so now I like to work independently. Mm-hmm. And I like jobs that are physical, because I like to put my headphones in, listen to my podcast or whatever I'm listening to, and be physically moving. I need movement for my personal energy management and anxiety management. And that's what I need. Didn't learn that till I was 40 years old. Mm-hmm. So yes, that's what I started making shifts, and I started changing my life. And while I was married, I got my first job that was independent and a physical job. I was a dog walker for 2 years.
You've done a lot of different jobs.
Yeah, a few.
So now that you're on this podcast,
yes,
this is now your favorite podcast, by the way. So you'll be listening into this podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that. Anyway. So let's dive a little bit deeper. What was that moment in time? What happened in your life? What was that event in your life that you sat down and you said, wait a second, time out. Things have to change, and I need to have some of this personal development, or I need to look at and examine my life because I'm not happy with what's going on, and I need to change because I need to grow as a person. What was that moment in time? So
I might get emotional. I hope I don't. Not because I'm ashamed, but just because
it's emotional.
I want to get it out. Let's go back maybe 4 years now, I think it was. It was during the winter, and I just physically wasn't feeling well. I just wasn't. I didn't know what was going on. I felt like I had the flu every single day, but I was not exhibiting any symptoms of it. And I just said, I don't know what's wrong with me. I couldn't sleep sometimes. It was just not a good feeling. It was the same feeling that I would have in my body if I did have the flu or was sick or had a sinus infection. I'm going, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And I had gone to a couple of primary doctors, and they do a general workup, and it's like, well, you're fine. There's nothing wrong with you. You have SAD. You have seasonal affective disorder. And I just said, I don't know. This is so severe. It's almost like it got to the point where I couldn't function. I wasn't even working at this point. And they're saying, oh, it's anxiety, it's depression, because depression has physical symptoms. And I'm like, I don't know. I kept on with my journey, and my sister, who is a massage therapist, by the way, she had referred me to a guy that she went to massage school with, who has his own practice in Morristown. She says, go see this guy. His name's John Kammer. Go see John Kammer. I'm like, okay. The doctor to tell me I have that, what did I tell you they have when you have trigger point pain? They call it
trigger points.
No, it's
Lactic
something
acid buildup,
not chronic
fibrosing,
fibromyalgia.
fibromyalgia. There you go.
Okay, that's what they were. Oh, fibromyalgia, you might have that. Okay, let's go to John Cameron. Let's give this guy a try. Because I was never into any holistic
Mhm.
practitioners, anything ever. So I went to John Cameron. Now he does myofascial release. He actually studied under John Barnes, who invented
Mhm.
the original myofascial release system. So he says, okay, we start talking about my lifestyle, what's going on, what I'm feeling. And I was going to John Cameron once, I think it was once every other week. I think that's what it was. And he would work on me. And I remember laying on the table and we were talking and he said to me, so what do you think you're doing here? Like, what are you doing like in life? Like, why do you think you were born? Stuff like that. And I remember saying to him, I don't know why I'm here.
Mhm.
I have no purpose.
Mhm.
I'm so lost and I don't really care. Like and he was like, and being the John that he is, total non-judgment zone, always just listened and he would start talking to me from a place of compassion and care and just this spiritual uplifting, because he's already at this level where I'm at now, but back then I didn't know any of this. And he would say, like, we would talk about like my ADD, let's say, or learning disabilities. I can't do school. I'm not good at it. So I couldn't go to college. I can't do this. And he would literally just say, you're normal, right? It's like, you're normal. And he started repeating the idea that I'm normal,
Mhm.
that I'm an artist. I am this individual over and over and over again. So the more that I saw him, the more now I'm being exposed to, well, you're your own person.
Mhm.
Like, okay, you don't learn this way, but you're an artist. You're this, you're that. And he would just say, you're normal. Like, you have panic attacks. Guess what? You're normal. You're normal.
Mhm.
We're all a little bipolar. We all have anxiety. We all
That's
have,
right.
this and that. And I just
Right.
like, okay, like he would say these things to me. I'd be like, wait. And my mind I was shifting the thoughts. And I just said, okay, I think things can change.
Mhm.
And I said, oh, okay, this is different. And the more he would talk to me about this other perception just of life,
Mhm.
I'd say, okay, like, well, it seems like he has his shit together. So let's look more into this.
Let's
And
try this out. Right.
yeah, and he taught me about the chakras, like our energy centers,
Mhm.
self-healing, nutrition. And I just took it to this whole new extent. And I started to study law of attraction, manifestation. I started watching everybody on YouTube. And I really got obsessed. And it became such a passion of, okay, what are these people saying? What's their perception? What are the techniques? And I started applying them to my own life. And I
Right.
started seeing
Right.
and I started seeing changes. And when I started studying law of attraction, I learned what scripting was.
Mhm.
I remember scripting, getting into like, I think just getting back into the job force. And I had scripted like, oh, at my job, my coworkers and I talk about like spirituality, and it looks like this, and this is what's going on, and this is how I feel. And when it came time to get back into the job force, I had gotten my first little part-time job at a warehouse. And I met one of my very best friends,
Mhm.
who's very spiritual, because I scripted all this out that I was going to meet more spiritual
Mhm.
people, mind you.
Mhm.
The first job I get, I meet her. And John Cameron had given me this prayer, like it's to clear negative energy. And I wrote it down on an index card. And I have it written down at the end of the prayer. I just, because I felt like it, just drew a little sun. And I'm not an artist, so I just, oh, okay, this is thank you, source, with a sun at the bottom.
Mhm.
And when I met this girl and we were hanging out for the first time, she came over my house and we were talking about law of attraction and energy. And I just said, this is something that I scripted about, that I would meet friends and have a best friend where we talk about energy management and
Mhm.
spirituality and all this cool new stuff I was learning about from John Kammer. So I take out this prayer to
Mhm.
show her, and I put the index card on the bed, and I didn't even realize she had her hand like on the bed. She has a tattoo of a sun right here, and it looks
Oh,
like a
wow.
drawn sun, the same thing that I had drawn on the index card. And I looked at her and I was getting chills all up and down my body, and I just said, well, you've arrived. And it was like, this is no joke.
You've manifested people into your life that you wanted to have manifest into your life. That's a wonderful thing.
And it was proof that this is real.
Right. Absolutely. Now, you mentioned a word before, judgmental and non-judgmental.
Yeah.
Yes. And when people judge you and they continually judge you in a negative way, that's when at some point in time that you say, enough is enough. I don't want any more. Did you have that growing up? It was always that judgmental type of a situation.
Well, I think the judgmental kind of stuff just came from having, a parent and later a step parent that was very critical.
Mhm.
And I learned that that was such a learned behavior that when I started
Mhm.
to practice self-awareness, one of the first things about myself that I wanted to become aware of was, okay, well, if you feel like, your lack of self-confidence comes from being so
Mhm.
critical and being judged, how much do
Mhm.
you judge other people?
Correct.
And I started to take notice of that. I really did.
Right.
And I just said, oh, after I observed it, I said, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was what made me say, I really need to back off of people,
Mhm.
because everyone comes from their own experiences and assigning their own meanings and their
Mhm.
own triggers. And it's like, we're all an extension of each other. And I think, again, like law of attraction, what you give out is what
Mhm.
you're going to get.
Right.
So I
100%.
made it, yeah. So I just made it, and again, an awareness. Cara, are you judging someone? Even if you're not saying it out loud, are you judging them, to yourself? And that was something that I really wanted to work on. And that really strengthened, I think, my friendships with the few friends that I do have, because
Mhm.
you can come to me and talk about something that's going on, and they know, my friends know, this is a no judgment zone. I'm not going to say, well, why are you dating this guy? He's a jerk. Leave him. No, you have to
Right.
leave him. It's like, no, Kara's going to ask you questions to help you become more self-aware of your own
Right.
patterns and your own beliefs.
You
So
need
you
to think. You need to
figure it
think.
out.
Right.
You have to think for yourself.
Yeah, I got that. So I want to go back. What is it? The INFJ, IFNJ?
INFJ.
Tell
Yes.
me, tell me about that. What is that?
Okay, so for those who haven't heard of the Myers-Briggs personality tests, this is a test. Now, I had a career counselor have me take this test, as a matter of fact, and I'm glad she had me do it. You just answer a bunch of questions about yourself, your preferences, stuff like that. Well, it spits out this personality type, right? So there are all these different combinations of personality types. And I scored this INFJ, and I'm going, okay. And it means introverted, intuitive, feeling, judging. So introverted means I need alone time to recharge. What I was talking about earlier was, I can expel a lot of my energy, but when I say it's time to quit, it's time to quit, and I'm going home and I'm being in the stillness and I'm recharging my batteries. That's what that means. Um, as far as intuitive, learn by looking at big ideas with a focus on patterns.
Mm-hmm.
And that just resonates with me so much, because as I look back, like on my spiritual journey, my self-development journey, and I've talked about patterns. I keep repeating these patterns. And like, I think that's something that is helpful to me also. I don't think it's the prominent characteristic for me. I think that the introverted and the feeling are,
Right.
because the feeling makes decisions based on own emotions and other people's feelings. I can be quite an emotional thinker. Now, I have learned over time to balance that out
Mhm.
um, with sort of rational thinking, but I know that about myself. So when we talk about others' feelings, I'm an empath. So that means that I feel other people's energy. So
Mhm.
again, this intuitive, it's like, well, that rings a bell, doesn't it? Because knowing I'm an empath, that makes so much sense. Where when I make decision, I'm considering other people's emotions
Mhm.
and my own because I'm an empath. And what's interesting about being an empath is where that comes from is when we're raised with someone in the household who you always had to sort of walk on eggshells for, or that was that person that you had to continuously prove you were good enough for or prove yourself in some way, you're actually training your nervous system to be in tune with someone else's because it
Right.
becomes a mechanism of acceptance and
Mhm.
survival. So we're trained from this early childhood to be in tune with everybody else's nervous system because that's what we have to do in order to be accepted. And that's where that
Right.
comes from.
That is awesome. I think
Oh,
I'm going to take this test. I have it written down here.
you have to take the test and you have to tell me what your result is because I'm
I
dying to know.
will. I will, because when we get off, I'm going to Google, and I will see if I can find the test online, and maybe I'll take it, and
Okay.
I'll do it right here in front of you. How's that sound? And see where it goes. You
Well, I
know.
think you should focus on it. I think you should take it in a quiet room and make sure
Okay.
you're focused because I want to, you
I'll
need
let
to
you
answer
know
those
the
questions
results.
to the best of your ability.
Yeah, I will let you know.
Okay.
So, what are you trying to manifest in your life right now?
Okay, so not trying, I am manifesting. We speak in
Awesome.
information, so
Right.
let's put that out there. I am manifesting emotional, physical, financial abundance. And
Mhm.
what I mean by that is I want to be the highest version of myself that I can be.
Mhm.
I want this magazine to be the root of my abundance, shall we say, financial,
Mhm.
but it'll give me the freedom to work from anywhere,
Mhm.
anytime, make my own schedule.
Right. Sure.
My dad lives in Florida, my sister lives in Arizona, and I'm like, okay, I need a house in Florida to be near him, and I need a house in Arizona to be near her, and I can be with my family, but still have this magazine, still run a business that comes from my
Mhm.
heart, something that I'm so passionate about. You know, this magazine is such a reflection of everything that I'm learning.
Mhm.
And I'm manifesting a community of people who are like-minded and also
Mhm.
want to learn these things.
Right.
And I think that by doing that, I'm adding value to people's lives. And I think
Sure.
that's why I see this magazine growing. And as we know about, money is energy, everything's energy. To get that even exchange of energy in terms of money,
Mhm.
I think that's where I see this paying off because it's going to be that even exchange of energy in the form of abundance for doing that and spreading this awareness of healing because that's
Mhm.
what it really is, you know?
I understand. Yeah, I agree with you
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Now, Cara, believe it or not, we're about 50 minutes right now. So we're rocking and rolling. We have about 5 more minutes. We're
Okay.
going to have you back on because we're just scratching the surface
We
here.
are. We
All right.
are.
We are just scratching the surface here. So let me ask you one last question. This could be, I mean, I'm sure you could talk about this for hours, but we're going to set up our next podcast, which is going
Okay.
to happen sooner than later. So
Okay.
tell me, what was the birth of the Cara and I magazine?
The birth. I would say Okay, I'll try to keep this super, super short, but I was dabbling in modeling a little bit
Mm-hmm.
while I was married. Started the Instagram, had the brand, everything.
Mm-hmm.
Started going through the divorce. I hired a social media coach,
Mm-hmm.
and she said, she said we were talking about, I think, a product or something to have, like, to sell or something, and she goes, she had a Victoria's Secret catalog in front of her.
Mm-hmm.
And she goes, you could do something like this. And she holds it up. It's the Victoria's Secret swimsuit catalog. And she was like, you could just have like photographs of yourself and just put like little like captions or whatever. And I was like, bam. I said, wait, I can do that. No, yeah, I can do that. That sounds really easy. And at the time, my first Cara and I magazine actually was me, and it was like beach photo shoots that I've done as like a collection for
Right.
my fans at that time. But she would say, whenever you speak about law of attraction, you just light up. And whenever you speak about these certain things, it's like you just light up and you get so motivated. And as I evolved through my divorce and this journey, yes, I evolved out of modeling, and I took from that and I said, this is the next step. This needs to be a health and wellness magazine sharing everything that I'm learning about me. And I felt that it was time for my audience to really get to know the real me, because this is who I actually am.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a girl just in lingerie or cute outfits modeling with nothing to say, because I have a lot to say. And I have a lot of people that I think need to hear encouraging words that feel stuck and are in the place that I was in.
Right. And our motto here is to motivate, educate, and inspire. And this is exactly what you are doing. That's why you're just a great fit for this podcast. And to motivate, educate, and inspire definitely takes a very special person. So you've really done that very well in your own life, as well as in the lives of others through your magazine.
Thank you.
So that is very important to say. So Cara, where can we find your magazine?
Well, it's actually on MagCloud. You can find it on MagCloud. You can find it on my website.
What's your
which is
website?
It's caramiamodel.com. However, I am in the process of transitioning it to a different website name. That's almost complete. So what I would say is go to my Instagram or my link tree. The easiest way is the link tree, and it'll say purchase Cara and I magazine. Just click the button and it'll take you right to MagCloud.
So listen, we're just about done here. I feel unfulfilled in a good way, in terms of there's so much more here. So we're going to have you come back on, and I have some thoughts and ideas with that, and I think that we can probably work this out, and I think it'll be good. So Instagram, go to the link tree, get the magazine, be motivated, be educated, be inspired by Cara, because if you're not, there's something wrong with you. No, I want to say that. Seriously, go get the magazine. This is incredible. I'm going to be a contributing editor. I'm going to write,
Yes.
I have it right here. I'm going to be
Yes.
writing about nutrition and functional medicine, if Cara will have me as a guest to do this. And we will discuss that also. So, Cara, thank you very much for being vulnerable. Thank you very much for just being who you are. Thank you very much for being such an inspiration. And this is an incredible conversation for the first podcast that you've ever done.
And
So
thank you
that's
so much for being there, inviting me, but being there to really hold that space for me while I speak.
Yes.
I'm just so grateful for this experience, and I just want to say thank you so much.
You're welcome, because let me tell you something, very easy to talk to you, very easy the way that you communicate, and it is wonderful. So want to thank everybody for being on today or being here today. And go to the Linktree Instagram. It will be in the show notes. This is going to go out, Karen, next week sometime, because it's that good. We're just going to rock and roll with it. So thank you, Karen, very much for being on. I have some ideas, so hang out before you leave, okay? So we're going to discuss. So thank you very much for being on. Everybody, live your best life, and we will see you the next time. Take care, Karen.
All right. Thank you.